Squiz Kids acknowledges the traditional owners of the lands on which we podcast, the Turrbal and Combermary people.
Squiz Kids!
It's your daily news fix. Fun, free, fresh.
Hello and welcome to Squiz Kids Today, your fresh take on what's happening in the world around you. I'm Bryce Corbett. It's Monday, August 28. In Squiz Kids Today, Buddy says goodbye. London Zoo's big fat weigh-in. Japan joins the race to the moon, and elephant versus croc epic battle. That's what's making news, kids style.
The lowdown.
He's been called one of the best players to ever pull on an AFL jersey. And yesterday, before a sold-out crowd at the Sydney Cricket Ground, Buddy Franklin did a lap of honour to say goodbye. After 354 games, first with Hawthorn and then with the Sydney Swans, during which he kicked a remarkable 1,066 goals, Lance Buddy Franklin has decided to retire, to hang up the boots and take a well-earned rest. More than 42,000 fans packed into the SCG yesterday afternoon to say thank you to Buddy for entertaining and inspiring them over so many years. As his team, the Sydney Swans, took on Melbourne in a tightly fought game, Buddy wandered onto the turf at halftime with his wife Jacinta and their two small children, and maybe a hint of a tear in his eye. Describing the experience as overwhelming, which is a fancy word for something that's so big it's hard to take it all in, Buddy said he felt a mixture of happiness and sadness. But most of all, he said he felt incredibly honoured to have been able to play footy at such a high level for such a long time. Coming from the bush in WA, he said, "I never thought this was possible. Squiz Kids salutes you, Buddy, and all the joy you've brought footy lovers everywhere." Meanwhile, while the men's competition is winding down with finals just around the corner, footy fans will be excited to learn that the Women's League kicks off this Friday. The first game of the AFLW will see reigning premiers Melbourne take on Collingwood, because too much footy is not nearly enough.
Spin the globe.
Each day we give the world globe a spin and find a news story from wherever it stops. And today we've landed in South Africa, where an epic battle between an elephant and a crocodile has been captured on video. A safari guide couldn't believe his eyes when he spotted an elephant crossing a river with a crocodile latched onto its tail. So, in a battle between a croc and an elephant, which one do you reckon would win? And what if I told you that it all took place in the croc's natural habitat, in a river? Well, sheer size triumphed over cunning in this instance, and the elephant managed to get to the other side of the river, with the croc firmly attached to its tail, before flinging it off. Like, literally flinging it off. I've stuck a link to the video in today's episode notes. I think you could fairly say that this is one crocodile that bit off more than it could chew. Ah, come on. What better way to kick off your week than a good old dad joke?
Animal Kingdom.
How do you weigh a tarantula? Or how do you measure the length of a tiger? Very carefully and very slowly is the answer. At least, that's how the team of zookeepers at London Zoo are doing it, as they set about weighing and measuring every single animal in the zoo this week. It's really important to keep track of animals' weight and height when they live in a zoo, to make sure they are growing in the way they're supposed to, and to compile all important data that the zookeepers can share with other zoos. So after years of weighing and measuring the 14,000 animals in their care, yes, that's right, 14,000 animals, the zookeepers at London Zoo have it down to a fine art. They use a musk-scented vertical ruler to get tigers to stand on their hind legs. They use a special insect ruler to measure the length of praying mantises. They put special treats on sets of scales to entice monkeys to clamber onto them. And in the case of emperor penguins, well, the zookeeper just lifts them straight onto the scales and then lifts them off again. They're very obliging, those penguins. And yes, because it's a Monday and we're getting towards the end of the school term, I've stuck a link to a video of the whole exercise in today's episode notes. Enjoy!
Spaced out.
My oh my, it's getting busy up there in space. Last week, we had news of India landing a spaceship and rover on the dark side of the moon. Plus, news of a failed attempt by Russia to land its own spacecraft on the moon. And now, a little later this morning, Japan is expected to join the race to the moon when it sends its very own rocket ship up there and plonks its own rover on the moon's surface. Assuming all goes well, the Japanese rocket ship is expected to lift off mid-morning today, hoping to land a special rover on the moon which can study rocks to discover when and how the moon was created. If successful, Japan will join the United States, Russia, China, and now India among nations of the Earth that have pulled off a soft landing of a spacecraft on the moon. How cool is that? Do you still have blue paint on your elbow that you can't quite scrub off? Do people think the glitter in your hair is really just a bad case of dandruff? Have you checked out the amazing creativeness of Squiz Kids listeners on our Facebook page and Instagram page? Book Week has come and gone for another year, and all last week kids and teachers were sharing their wild and wonderful costume creations with us on our socials. People, you've made it really difficult now for me to judge the best ones. And I need some help. We've been reposting all of the costumes to our Facebook and Insta accounts, so hop online, take a look, and let me know which ones are your favourites, and I'll announce the winners in Wednesday's podcast. The links are in the episode notes, and while you're there, why don't you give us a follow? Because you can never have enough love, right?
Time for the quiz.
This is the part of the podcast where you get to test how well you've been listening. Question number 1. Which team did Buddy Franklin play for before the Sydney Swans? Yeah, that's right, it was Hawthorn. Question number 2. Which country will send a spaceship to the moon this morning? Yeah, that's right, it's Japan. Question number 3. How many animals are at the London Zoo? Well done if you said 14,000.
Shout-outs.
It's August 28, the first day of Teacher Aid Appreciation Week. So, you've got all week to show all of the fabulous teacher aides you know just how much you appreciate them and everything they do for you. Squiz Kids salutes you, teacher aides. Schools wouldn't be the same without you. It's also a special day for these Squiz Kids celebrating a birthday today. Evelyn from Ivanhoe, Noah from Foster, Avela from Orange, Anita from Parramatta, Max from Forest Lake, Max from Kincumber, Josh from Lawler Park, Clarissa from Wanturna, Zach from Cronulla, Luke from Chatswood, Lily from Victoria, Oscar from Maitland, and Marissa from Epping. And belated shout-outs today go to Joey from Bridgewater, Lillian from North Richmond, Electra from Plumpton, Addison from Brisbane, Sienna, Mia, Zoe, Levi and Joel from Pakenham, and Bella, who's listening all the way over there in Taipei in Taiwan. And finally, a special belated shout-out to Chloe from Richmond Lowlands, whom we forgot to include last week. Sorry, Chloe. And classroom shout-outs today go to Class 6S with Mr. Sigma and Class 6Y with Mrs. Lee at Carlingford Public School. Class F3 and Mrs. Lanello at Hammond Park Primary School. Class 6B and Mrs. Wing at Our Lady of Fatima Primary School in Caringbah. Class 4P at Berwick Lodge in Berwick. Class 4 Blue and Mrs. Liner at St Agnes Primary School in Mount Gravatt. And finally to Class SP2 and Mrs. Graham at St Pius Parish School in Warrnambool. Don't forget, if you've got a birthday coming up and you want a shout-out, or if you're after a classroom shout-out, drop us a line at squizkids@thesquiz.com.au or fill out the form on our website. Well, that's all we have time for. Thanks for listening to Squiz Kids today. We'll be back again tomorrow with a shortcut on sugar. And then, of course, we'll be back on Wednesday with another edition of the Squiz Kids Today Daily News Podcast. In the meantime, get out there and have a most excellent day. Over and out.